Hello and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Welcome to your show for Tuesday, January 18th, 2021. Today, of course, sports. Let's start with Detroit City FC. Some big signings. Let's walk through them chronologically. Abdoulaye Diop. Fletcher, thoughts?
One of my favorite players from the 2019 year. I wondered what happened to him after he left. Come to find out he'd been playing for Atlanta United too, and he'd been playing well. He is, I guess, in the mold of a destroyer type midfielder where ball comes to him, someone's dribbling at him, he takes the ball, can play the ball to the back, pretty good with the ball at his feet, but his game is more so see ball, take ball. For people who watch big European soccer, I guess he would be a poor man's version of N'Golo Kante, someone who sees the ball and now it's their ball and has a motor that he will run for the entire time he's on the field. You'll never see moments of him loafing around, which is an encouraging thing to see for a team that desperately needs a defensive-minded midfielder.
And it's good to see them bring on some talent that's already up in the league that they're playing in.
Definitely, especially one that has familiarity with the team and with the culture of the organization, who also, like you said, played in the championship.
You know, I've really noticed that the club seems to bring people back on a pretty regular basis. Like if you've got connections to the club, it's not like if you leave, you can never come back again.
No, and that's a good thing, honestly. It shows that, hey, we have ambitions, but also if we have people who are capable of playing at the next level, who we know fit within the club culture, we know fit with the fans, we know fits with the front office, and just kind of emulates what we want as a player, we definitely want to have that type of player back if possible. So it's very good to see them bring back a quality player like Lay.
So the duck emojis were everywhere for Pato Botello-Faz. I think a lot of people were excited to see his return.
For those who don't know, Pato in Portuguese and also in Spanish means duck. His name is Patricio, but anyone named Patricio typically gets nicknamed Pato, which is the duck. So, yeah, it's really good to see him back. Hopefully he can improve on his final touch in the box because they're going to need that going forward. But bringing back an experienced forward who's played at that level before, who can put the ball in the net when he's feeling it, who has excellent link-up play with the midfield that's returning. It's a very, very great thing to see, especially, like I said, with Diop, a player who fits within the community and embraces the culture very well.
Maxi Rodriguez returns.
Pato's roommate, so it's, like I said, link up with the midfield, especially between those two, as they know each other very well. Maxi is also a player who has experience at the USL Championship level, so to see him be back in the midfield is great. And also pairing him with a player like Lay Diop is perfect because Maxi can now push a bit more up the field. For those who are wondering what I mean, typically in the midfield, you have three types of midfielders. You have your defensive midfielder, you have your central midfielder who kind of do a bit of both, and you have your attacking midfielder. Maxi is more of a central midfielder. He can play a bit attacking, a bit defensively, but given the way the team lined up with no defensive midfielders last year, really, he had to play more defensively. With a player like Lay Diop, he can step forward a bit more and kind of be more of a metronome as opposed to more of a stopgap and try to play the ball from deep. Heck, we might even see him score some goals that aren't penalty kicks.
Well, I'll ask you my next question after we talk about the final signing before we started recording this. Rhys Williams, Stumptown AC. That team's been facing some challenges lately.
Yeah, they've lost their head coach from last year. They've lost two players for sure, with Rhys being the second. Frankie Rodriguez, who I think is a brilliant center back, going to Chattanooga. And they're currently without a keeper in Kevin Gonzalez, who I think is one of the top three keepers in NISA. And personally, I think Detroit City FC should kick the tires and see if he's looking at maybe competing for a spot on their roster because he's that good. Stumptown's not doing so well in retaining people, especially after getting a buyer for their team. But Rhys Williams is a quality player on the right wing. Plays wing back. Which fits perfectly with what Detroit City FC needs, especially with Kevin Venegas, who is a still talented player, but he is around 33, 34, getting up there in age, which for me is like, hey, it's average person age, but for an athlete, that's kind of nearing the end of your career. Rhys had 3 goals and 3 assists last year, so he's shown he can get forward and can also create. And he's played every single minute for Stumptown during their games last year. Every single minute. So if need be, he can go out there and play 90 minutes 5-6 times in a row if need be.
Now that we have a number of signings, How do the puzzle pieces come together for you? What are your thoughts so far?
So far, they're addressing needs that they need, which is good. They're getting players who are familiar with the team, whether it's through playing or whether it's through playing against. They're getting players who allow them to continue to maintain possession, but also push up a little bit. What I would like to see a bit more from them is maybe another midfielder or two who we don't know. Maybe another forward, maybe another wing player just to like solidify that. But so far, they're making the right signings. I have full faith in Trevor James to get the players he needs to get the most out of them, especially considering that he took a very struggling Indy 11 when he took over the championship and kind of pushed them to a decent team. Not the best team, but very, very decent. He made them a quality team to watch whether they won or lost. So to see that, I would, if I'm a fan, I'd have faith in him to make sure this team stays relevant and stays consistent for this next season.
Okay, let's play absurd soccer manager here. Money not an option, whatever. Who would you sign? Like, money's no option, playing's no option. Like, who would you get in there if you had the choice of anybody on the board?
In the world, I mentioned him, but players like N'Golo Kante, players like players in the midfield who can run forever and get the ball back, because more so in the USL Championship, the game is a little bit faster. Nisa, they had a bit more time on the ball because they were so insane at possessing it. The Championship, the game moves a little bit faster. The ball comes off your foot a little bit faster. The players are a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. So I'd want players who can run for a while and get the ball back. I'd want wing players who are okay playing a little bit of defense. Typically, wingbacks are defenders and also people who get forward, but maybe the attackers up top also, I'd want them to be prepared to like, hey, I might need you to get back and help out in the defense a little bit. Maybe I'd want another goalie just to have a competition back there. So I really can't think of any names in the country right now. I can probably get a list and tweet that out if people were interested in that.
You talk about a faster speed of play. That's one thing I noticed watching USL clips and then also going to an MLS game. I think fans are in for a real treat about how the pace of this game is going to increase in 2022.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that's really consistent with soccer in all around the world, not just in the U.S. But the better teams in leagues typically play really slow games because they can control the pace. In NISA and also in NPSL, DCFC 9 out of 10 times was the better team. So it's like, we want to play a very slow, methodical game. We're going to play the slow, methodical game, and you're just going to have to just deal with it. That's it. Like, there's no, we're going to speed the game up. We'll just take the ball back and slow the game down. USL Championship, every team is capable of doing that. Every team is also capable of speeding the game up. DCFC will not be the best team in the field every single time. So as a result, they'll get teams who want to push it up and down the field and tire them out. Push it up and down the field and stretch them across the field, as opposed to just playing the slow, methodical game. So I think fans should be ready to see not really the Anaconda style of play that I said in the past, where they kind of move it up the field a bit by bit until the next thing you know, they swallow the entire team. I think they should expect to see their team having to get back and sprint back really quickly to chase after some very long balls or some very quality players who are trying to cut through their defense.
All right, let's switch gears, talk basketball. We had mentioned Bol Bol last week. That trade, well, it's not a thing. The Pistons failed him on the physical, and we've learned more. This is really interesting to me.
Everyone's wondering what happened to Bol Bol's trade. Most people knew that he had broken his left foot in college, which is why he only played 1 year at Oregon. He had one great year up until the injury. As a pro, he'd been relatively healthy, and I'm not really sure whether that's due to the fact he's been healthy or the fact that he hasn't really been able to play much, because Nikola Jokic has been a monster for them. He's on a NBA record-breaking pace this season. But come to find out today, he is having surgery on his right foot, and he'll be out 8 to 12 weeks, which effectively puts him out for the rest of the season. And he actually has not been back to the Nuggets since the trade was voided, which I understand. It's going to be hard on him and also hard on Rodney McGruder. Rodney McGruder went through shoot around with the Nuggets actually before they're like, hey, actually, we can't do this trade. Sorry, you got all dressed up and got a number and everything, but you got to go back to Detroit.
Oof.
I don't think the Nuggets training staff tried to pull a fast one in Detroit. The Nuggets have one of the best training staffs in the whole association, up there with the Phoenix Suns. They do great with players who historically have been unhealthy, and then all of a sudden they get healthy down there. They have players who go long stretches without being hurt. So I don't think that was the case, but I will say it's a little strange that he comes back and their coach is like, I would play him. I think he's healthy. And then all of a sudden he's like, actually, I'm going to go have some surgery on my foot. So there's a disconnect there somewhere where something is wrong. It's unfortunate because I think Bol Bol would have made a welcome addition to the Pistons roster for two reasons. One, if he works out, perfect. We have our young center of the future. We can move Isaiah Stewart to the power forward position and we can proceed to just play from there. But that's not the case. And if he didn't work out, which is still, again, not the case, we could let him go as he's a restricted free agent. Pistons could still potentially get him as he's a restricted free agent. If anyone makes an offer for him, Denver has a chance to offer a rebuttal. We don't know if they will, as Bol Bol is talented, but we've not really been able to see it as often because, again, Nikola Jokic is a monster and just will not allow Bol Bol to get playing time.
And then finally, this is a fun one. I know it's not necessarily our wheelhouse per se on these sports episodes, but it's been all over Twitter and kind of the blogosphere right now, if that still exists. Sometime a few days ago, it was the 50th anniversary of the proposal for a domed stadium on the Detroit riverfront. Now, this was all the rage 50 years ago, and most of those stadiums, frankly, built during that era are gone. I'll make sure to link to it in the show notes. It's got that very modern look. I am honestly not a fan. I don't like it for a host of reasons from a development point of view. What were your thoughts? This would have been just west of Cobo Hall. I kind of think in the area where there are a few apartment towers now. What were your thoughts, Fletch?
I'm kind of for a dome. I like what the domes have done with the Blue Jays and the Argonauts of Toronto and the Rays and Tampa Bay. I like a dome to a degree, especially with the weather being volatile in Michigan. As we know, it can be 80 degrees at noon, and then you blink, and at 4 o'clock, there's hail. You don't want to have a baseball game be halted because there's a random windstorm that's now blowing every pitch 30 feet foul, or random pieces of hail falling, or whatever. You want to be able to say, hey, we have a thing to stop you from this happening. Our games will never get delayed. Also, I've seen games in the Rays Stadium and also in the Blue Jay Stadium where outfielders have lost the ball in the stadium lights and also the ceiling, which makes sense because, unless you have great depth perception, which I personally do not, you will drop those things.
See, I've been to the Rogers Center in Toronto, and I will admit that a retractable dome is fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just retractable domes take a while to open and close. And if you're playing and all of a sudden the skies open up on you, no one has the time to sit there and wait and watch if it's going to be open or not. But again, like you said, it's 50 years in the past, did not happen. So, I think it might have been cool to have, something on the Riverwalk, another thing next to Cobo, but also I'm not terribly hurt about it because, again, everyone knows, I'm a curmudgeon for traffic downtown, so I would really not like to have double the traffic in one area. It's a huge pressure point and would make maneuvering down there on sports days very much not fun, which would lead to me being very cranky.
The thing about it, though, is it would have been a multi-purpose stadium as I understand it. And I feel like those make a lot of compromises. Do you think those can work long term, or does it have to be aligned sports? Can you do soccer and football in the same stadium or something? What are your thoughts on that?
You used to be able to, and I guess technically you still could with the USL Championship if the Lions decided to let DCFC use their stadium with them. But if you want to be an MLS team now, which I think Detroit City FC has aspirations for, which I know makes a few fans groan, you need a soccer-specific stadium.
And that is it for today's show. Fletcher Sharpe, I understand that you're cheating on us with another podcast. Well, actually, no. I encourage you to go on other podcasts. What have you got on deck?
So I am joining my friend DJ Switzer, filling in for his co-host Jeremy Lance on the Wrong Side of the Pond podcast, a very soccer-specific podcast, focusing on soccer in its totality. talking about English Premier League, talking a little bit of Africa Cup of Nations, talking about everyone's beloved Detroit City FC as well. That's probably the reason why they brought me on, is because people think I know so much about it, which I'll take it, definitely. But yeah, that should be going up tomorrow. So if people are interested in hearing me talk more specific soccer stuff, I would definitely look up Wrong Side of the Pond after listening to this episode, for sure.
And you can go check it out at wrongsideofthepond.com. Fletcher Sharpe, good to talk to you, man.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me again.
And with that, I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.